Elena Martinez had always believed that family meant everything. Growing up in the small town of Millbrook, she thought her parents, Maria and Roberto Martinez, loved her unconditionally. She was wrong. At 25, Elena had been married to David Thompson for 3 years. Their marriage had started with hope and dreams of building a beautiful family together. David worked at the local bank and Elena helped her mother run their small bakery on Main Street. Life seemed perfect, except for one growing problem that cast a shadow over their happiness. Elena couldn't get pregnant. Month after month, she and David tried to start their family. Elena visited doctors in the next town over, spending money they didn't have on tests and treatments. Each negative pregnancy test felt like a knife in her heart. The doctors couldn't find anything specifically wrong, but the results were always the same. No pregnancy. David grew more distant with each passing month. What started as gentle encouragement became cold silence. He stopped holding her hand during their evening walks. He no longer asked about her doctor appointments. The warmth in his eyes when he looked at her disappeared completely. Elena noticed how David's gaze lingered on other women in town, especially those pushing baby strollers or carrying young children. She saw him talking to Sarah Johnson at the grocery store, laughing in a way he hadn't laughed with Elena in months. Sarah had 2 beautiful children and had recently divorced her husband. The truth came crashing down on a rainy Tuesday evening in October. Elena came home early from the bakery to surprise David with his favorite dinner. Instead, she found him packing his clothes into suitcases. "What are you doing?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. David didn't even look up from his packing. "I'm leaving, Elena. I can't do this anymore." "What do you mean?" "We can keep trying. The doctor said there are other options." "No." David's voice was sharp and final. "I want children, Elena. Real children. Not endless doctor visits and false hopes. Sarah understands what I need." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "Sarah? You're leaving me for Sarah?" "She can give me what you can't," David said, finally meeting her eyes. His expression was cold, almost cruel. A real family. Elena felt her world crumble. "David, please. We can adopt, I don't want to adopt someone else's problems. I want my own children, something you'll never be able to give me." He zipped up his suitcase and headed for the door. "I'll send someone for the rest of my things." Elena stood in their empty bedroom listening to David's car drive away into the night. The rain against the windows seemed to echo her tears. She had lost her husband, but she had no idea that this was only the beginning of her nightmare. The next morning, Elena drove to her parents' house seeking comfort and support. She found her mother, Maria, in the kitchen making coffee. Her father, Roberto, sat at the kitchen table reading his newspaper. "Mama, Papa," Elena said, her voice still rough from crying. "David left me." Maria looked up from her coffee, but her expression wasn't the sympathetic one Ayla expected. Instead, her mother's face was hard, almost angry. "We know," Maria said simply. "You know." "How do you know?" Roberto folded his newspaper and looked at his daughter with disappointment. "The whole town knows, Elena. David came to see us yesterday."
Elena felt confused. "He came here."
"Why? To return you," her father said, his words cutting through Elena like a sword. "Return me? What does that mean?" Maria sat down across from Elena, her expression cold. "Elena, you have brought nothing but shame to this family. 3 years of marriage and no children. David is a good man. He deserves better." Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Mama, I'm your daughter. I need your support right now." "What you need," Roberto interrupted, "is to stop being a burden. David has offered to pay us for the trouble you've caused him. He wants to end this marriage cleanly." "Pay you?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "You're talking about me like I'm property." "In a way you are," Maria said matter-of-factly. "We raised you, fed you, educated you, and gave you to a good man. You failed in your most basic duty as a wife. David has every right to return a defective product." Elena felt sick. "I can't believe you're saying this to me." "Believe it," Roberto said, standing up. "David has offered us $5,000 to take you back and dissolve the marriage quietly. We've accepted. But where will I go? What will I do? Maria shrugged. That's your problem now. You're 25 years old, Elena. You're old enough to figure out your own life. We won't support a barren woman who can't fulfill her purpose. Elena looked between her parents, searching for any sign of the love and warmth she had grown up with. She found nothing but cold calculation and disappointment. I'm still your daughter, she whispered. You're a failure, Maria replied without hesitation. And failures have consequences. Elena spent that night in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling and trying to process what had happened. Her husband had traded her in like a broken appliance. Her parents had accepted payment for her return like she was livestock. Everything she had believed about love and family had been destroyed in 24 hours. The next morning, Elena woke to find her suitcase packed and waiting by her bedroom door. Maria stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. It's time for you to go, her mother said. Where am I supposed to go? There's a train to the city at noon. What you do after that is your choice. Elena picked up her suitcase, which contained everything she owned in the world. At the front door, she turned back to look at her parents one last time. I hope the money was worth losing your daughter, she said. Roberto didn't look up from his newspaper. We lost our daughter the day you proved you were barren. What's leaving now is just a reminder of our disappointment. Elena walked out of her childhood home and never looked back. The train ride to the city gave Elena time to think. She had a small amount of money saved from working at the bakery, enough to last maybe a month if she was careful. She had no friends in the city, no job prospects, and no family to turn to. As the countryside rolled past her window, Elena made a decision. She would survive this. She would build a new life even if she had to do it completely alone. She didn't know how yet, but she refused to let the cruelty of her family and ex-husband destroy her completely. The train pulled into Central Station as the sun was setting. Elena stepped onto the platform with her single suitcase, surrounded by strangers in a city she barely knew. She had never felt more alone in her life, but for the first time in days, she also felt a spark of something else, determination. Elena found a small, cheap hotel room for the night. As she lay in the unfamiliar bed listening to the sounds of the city outside her window, she made herself a promise. She would never again allow anyone to treat her as less than human. She would never again accept being valued only for her ability to bear children. She didn't know that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. She didn't know that sometimes the darkest moments come just before the most extraordinary light. Elena Martinez was about to discover that her story was just beginning, and that being called barren by small-minded people was nothing compared to the incredible destiny waiting for her in the shadows of the night. The city held secrets that would transform everything Elena thought she knew about herself and about the world. But first, she had to survive long enough to discover them. Elena closed her eyes and tried to sleep, unaware that somewhere in the darkness of the city, ancient eyes were already watching her. Her real story was about to begin. Elena had been living in the city for 2 months, and each day was a struggle to survive. She found work as a night cleaner in a large office building downtown. The pay was barely enough to cover her tiny studio apartment and basic food, but it was honest work and Elena was grateful for it. The building she cleaned was old and elegant, with marble floors and tall windows that overlooked the city. Elena worked alone, moving through empty offices with her cart of supplies, wiping down desks and emptying trash cans. She had grown to enjoy the quiet solitude of her work. After the betrayal by her family and ex-husband, being alone felt safer than trusting people. It was on a particularly cold February night that Elena's life changed forever. She was cleaning the executive offices on the 20th floor when she heard voices coming from the conference room. This was unusual because the building was supposed to be empty after 10 p.m. Elena quietly moved closer to investigate, thinking perhaps security guards were making their rounds. What she heard through the conference room door made her blood run cold. "The next shipment arrives Thursday night," a man's voice was saying. 20 girls, all between 16 and 22. "Good," replied another voice, this one with a slight accent Elena couldn't place. "The buyers from overseas are getting impatient. They want fresh inventory." Elena's heart began racing. They were talking about human trafficking. She pressed closer to the door, knowing she should leave but unable to stop listening. "What about the Martinez problem?" asked a third voice. Elena froze. Martinez was her last name, but surely this was a coincidence. "Which Martinez?" asked the first voice. "Roberto Martinez from Millbrook. He's been asking too many questions about his daughter. Apparently, she disappeared after her husband returned her to them." Elena's knees nearly gave out. They were talking about her father, about her. "I thought we paid Martinez to keep quiet about the arrangement," said the accented voice. "We did. $5 to take the girl back and make sure she disappeared quietly. But now he's having second thoughts. Says people in town are asking questions." Elena realized with horror that her father hadn't just accepted money from David to take her back. He had accepted money from criminals to make her disappear. Her own parents had essentially sold her to human traffickers. "Handle it," said the accented voice coldly. "Roberto Martinez knows too much. Make it look like an accident." "And the daughter? Elena Martinez is already supposed to be missing." "No one will look for a woman who never existed." Elena backed away from the door, her heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it. She had to get out of the building immediately. But as she turned to leave, her cleaning cart bumped into a wall, making a loud noise. The voices in the conference room stopped. "What was that?" one of them asked. Elena abandoned her cart and ran for the stairs. She could hear the conference room door opening behind her as she reached the stairwell. Heavy footsteps followed her down the stairs. "There's someone here," a voice echoed in the stairwell. "Find them." Elena ran down 20 flights of stairs faster than she had ever moved in her life. She burst out of the building into the cold night air and kept running until her lungs burned. She didn't stop until she reached her apartment building 6 blocks away. In her small studio apartment, Elena sat on her bed shaking. Everything made terrible sense now. Her parents hadn't just been cruel when they rejected her. They had been paid to deliver her to criminals. David hadn't just left her for another woman. He had been part of a plan to make her disappear. Elena realized she was in mortal danger. The men in that building would figure out who she was. They would come looking for her. She had to leave the city immediately. She was throwing clothes into her suitcase when someone knocked on her door. Elena froze. It was 2 a.m. Number 1 should be knocking on her door at this hour. "Elena Martinez," a voice called through the door. It was calm, polite, and absolutely terrifying. "We need to speak with you." Elena looked around her apartment frantically. She was on the 3rd floor, too high to jump. The fire escape was outside her window, but she would have to open it and they would hear her. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. "Miss Martinez, we know you're in there." "This can be easy or difficult. Your choice." Elena moved to the window and quietly unlocked it. As she started to open it, she heard a different voice behind her. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Elena spun around. A man was standing in her apartment even though her door was still closed and locked. He was tall, with dark hair and pale skin. He wore an expensive black suit and moved with a strange fluid grace. "How did you get in here?" Elena whispered. The man smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be normal. "The same way I'm going to get you out of here safely." Before Elena could react, the man moved faster than humanly possible. In one moment, he was across the room, and in the next, he was beside her, his arm around her waist. "Hold on," he said quietly. The world blurred around Elena. She felt like she was flying, but she couldn't see anything clearly. The sensation lasted only seconds, and then she was standing in a completely different place. Elena found herself in an elegant room with high ceilings, rich furniture, and oil paintings on the walls. Tall windows showed a view of the city from much higher up than her apartment had been. "Where am I?" she asked, backing away from the strange man. "Safe," he replied. "For now. Who are you? How did you move like that? How did you get into my apartment?" The man studied her for a moment, as if deciding how much to tell her. "My name is Alexander Blackwood, and I'm not entirely human." Elena stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm what most people would call a vampire." Elena laughed, though it sounded more like a sob. This is insane. Vampires aren't real. You're probably working with those men who were chasing me. Alexander raised an eyebrow. If I were working with them, Elena, you would already be dead. Those men don't take prisoners. How do you know my name? I've been watching you for several weeks, ever since you started working in that building. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. You've been stalking me? Protecting you, Alexander corrected. I knew those men were planning something involving a woman named Elena Martinez. When you appeared in that building cleaning offices late at night, I became curious. When I learned your story about your family, your ex-husband, the money that changed hands, I realized you were in terrible danger. Elena sank into a chair, overwhelmed. So vampires are real, and one of them has been following me around? Vampires are real, yes, but we're not the monsters that stories make us out to be. At least, not all of us. What do you want with me? Alexander moved to the window and looked out at the city. Those men who were chasing you tonight are part of a human trafficking ring. They prey on women who won't be missed, women like you who have been rejected by their families and have nowhere to turn. And you care about this because I have children, Alexander said quietly. 3 children who mean everything to me, and I know what it's like to have your family threatened. Elena looked at this strange, pale man who claimed to be a vampire and said he had children. How is that possible? I thought vampires couldn't have families. Alexander turned back to her, and for the first time his expression was vulnerable. It's complicated. My children aren't entirely human, but they're not fully vampire either. They're something in between. Where is their mother? Dead, Alexander said simply. She died protecting them from others of my kind who wanted to use them for their power. Elena felt her heart soften slightly. Despite everything that had happened, despite her fear and confusion, she could hear the pain in his voice when he spoke about his children and their mother. What does any of this have to do with me? Those men will never stop hunting you, Elena. They have too much invested in making you disappear. But I can protect you. I can give you a new life, a real life. In exchange for what? Alexander was quiet for a long moment. My children need a mother figure. Someone who can care for them, teach them about human emotions and relationships, someone who won't be afraid of what they are. Aelin stared at him. You want me to be a babysitter for vampire children? I want you to be their family, Alexander corrected, as they would become yours. Elena thought about her empty apartment, her dead-end job, the constant fear of being discovered by the criminals who wanted her dead. Then she thought about her parents who had sold her like livestock and her ex-husband who had discarded her for being defective. What are your children like? She asked. Alexander's entire demeanor changed when he talked about his children. His face became warm and proud. Lucas is 8. He's brilliant and curious about everything. He loves books and puzzles. Maya is 6. And she's fearless and determined. She wants to learn to fight and protect people. And Emma is 4. She's gentle and kind, but she has visions sometimes. She can see things that haven't happened yet. Visions? They each inherited different abilities from their supernatural heritage. Lucas can read minds if he concentrates. Maya has incredible strength for her size. Emma sees the future in fragments. Elena tried to process this information. And you think I could help raise children with supernatural powers? I think you could love them, Alexander said simply. And they desperately need someone who can love them without fear. Elena looked around the elegant room, then back at Alexander. What if I say no? Then I'll help you disappear safely somewhere far from here. I'll give you enough money to start over, and I'll make sure those men never find you. And if I say yes, then you become part of our family. You help me raise 3 extraordinary children, and in return you'll have protection, security, and people who will never betray or abandon you. Elena thought about the word Barren that her family and husband had used to define her. Here was a man offering her 3 children who needed a mother, not because she could bear children, but because she could love them. Can I meet them before I decide? She asked. Alexander smiled. and Elena realized it was the first genuine smile she had seen from him. "I was hoping you would ask that." As Elena prepared to meet Alexander's children, she had no idea that this decision would not only save her life, but transform her into someone powerful beyond her wildest dreams. The woman who had been called barren and worthless was about to become the center of a supernatural family and discover strengths she never knew she possessed. Alexander led Elena through his mansion to a large living room where 3 children sat quietly on a plush sofa. Elena's heart immediately went out to them. They looked like normal children, but there was something otherworldly about their stillness and the way they watched her with ancient eyes. "Children," Alexander said gently, "this is Elena. She might be staying with us for a while." Lucas, the 8-year-old, tilted his head and studied Elena intently. "She's scared, but not of us," he said matter-of-factly. "She's scared of the bad men who are chasing her." Elena's eyes widened. "How did you know that?" "Lucas can hear thoughts sometimes," said Maya, the 6-year-old, bouncing slightly on the sofa. "It's really cool, but Papa says he shouldn't do it without permission." Little Emma, only 4 years old, looked up at Elena with serious dark eyes. "You're going to stay," she said quietly. "I saw it in a dream. You're going to be our mama, and you're going to make the scary things go away." Elena knelt down in front of the children, studying their faces. They were beautiful children. Lucas with his thoughtful expression and intelligent eyes, Maya with her bright energy and fearless grin, and little Emma with her gentle wisdom that seemed far too mature for her age. "What happened to your real mama?" Alien asked softly. The children exchanged glances. Lucas spoke first. "Other vampires killed her because they wanted to take us away from Papa. They said we were too powerful and dangerous to stay with him." "But Papa fought them," Maya added fiercely. "He protected us, but Mama got hurt helping him fight." Emma climbed down from the sofa and walked over to Elena. "Mama told me before she died that someone else would come to take care of us. Someone who understood what it felt like to lose family." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry you lost her. Are you going to leave us too?" Emma asked, taking Elena's hand. Elena looked at this tiny girl who had already experienced so much loss, then at Lucas and Maya who were trying so hard to be brave. She thought about her own family who had thrown her away and her husband who had discarded her for being unable to have children. Here were 3 children who needed her not for what she could give birth to, but for what she could offer them as a person. "No, sweetheart," Elena said, squeezing Emma's small hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Alexander smiled with relief. "Does this mean you'll stay?" "It means I want to try," Elena said, standing up. "But I need to know what I'm getting into." "What does it mean to be part of a vampire family?" Over the next few days, Alexander explained everything to Elena. He told her about vampire society, about the dangers they faced from both humans who hunted them and other vampires who saw his mixed heritage children as threats. He explained how the children's abilities worked and how to help them control their powers. Elena learned that Lucas could read minds, but the abilities sometimes overwhelmed him with other people's thoughts. Maya had the strength of several adult humans, but she was still learning to control it so she wouldn't accidentally hurt people. Emma's visions of the future came randomly and often scared her because she couldn't always understand what they meant. "The most important thing," Alexander explained, "is that they need stability and love. Their mother's death traumatized them, and they've been afraid to get close to anyone since then." Elena spent hours with each child learning their personalities and needs. She read books with Lucas and marveled at his brilliant mind. She taught Maya games that helped her practice controlling her strength. She held Emma when the little girl had frightening visions and helped her understand that seeing the future was a gift, not a curse. Within a week, the children were calling Elena Mama Elena, and she felt her heart healing in ways she hadn't thought possible. For the first time in her life, she felt truly needed and valued for who she was, not what she could or couldn't do. But their peaceful new life was interrupted when Alexander received disturbing news. "The trafficking ring has escalated their search for you," he told Elena one evening after the children were in bed. "They've put a substantial bounty on your head." and they've connected your disappearance to the Martinez family." Elena felt her blood run cold. "What does that mean?" "Your parents were found dead yesterday. It was made to look like a car accident, but I have sources who confirmed it was murder." Elena sank into a chair, overwhelmed by complex emotions. Her parents had betrayed her terribly, but she had never wanted them dead. "They killed my parents because of me," she whispered. "They killed your parents because your parents knew too much about their operation," Alexander corrected gently. "This isn't your fault, Elena. What about David? Is he safe?" Alexander's expression darkened. David Thompson was never in any real danger. He was working with them from the beginning. The whole marriage was a setup to deliver you to them when you were isolated and vulnerable. Elena felt sick. "My entire marriage was a lie? David was paid to marry you and then discard you in a way that would make you desperate and alone. The infertility problems were likely caused by medication he was secretly giving you." Elena's hands shook as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. Everyone she had trusted, her husband, her parents, had conspired to destroy her life for money. "I'm going to kill him," she said quietly. "No," Alexander said firmly. "You're not, because you're better than they are and because we have bigger problems to worry about." "What problems?" "The bounty on your head has attracted attention from vampire hunters. They think I'm harboring you for nefarious purposes, and other vampires are questioning why I'm protecting a human." Elena looked at Alexander, realizing the full extent of what he had risked to save her. "You're in danger because of me." "We're all in danger," he said, "but we're also stronger together than any of us would be alone." That night, their home was attacked. Elena woke to the sound of breaking glass and Alexander's urgent voice calling for the children. She ran to their bedrooms and found Alexander gathering them together. "What's happening?" Elena asked. "Vampire hunters," Alexander said grimly. "They've surrounded the house." Lucas was crying, overwhelmed by the violent thoughts of the attackers outside. Maya was trying to comfort him while fighting her own fear. Little Emma looked up at Elena with wide eyes. "Mama Elena," Emma whispered, "in my vision you saved us, but you had to become like Papa." Elena looked at Alexander. "What does she mean?" Alexander's face was torn with anguish. "Elena, there's something I haven't told you. The only way to permanently protect you from all these threats is to change you. To make you like me? Turn me into a vampire? The process would give you the strength and abilities to help me protect our family. But it would also change you forever. You would no longer be completely human." The sounds of the attackers getting closer filled the house. Elena looked at the 3 frightened children clinging to their father, and her decision became crystal clear. "Do it," she said. "Elena, you need to understand. Do it now." Elena interrupted. "These children need both of us to protect them." "I won't let anyone hurt our family." Alexander stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "Stay with the children," he told her. "Keep them calm. I'll handle the immediate threat, then we'll complete the transformation." What followed was the longest night of Elena's life. Alexander fought off the initial wave of attackers while Elena barricaded herself with the children in a safe room. Lucas's mind-reading ability helped them track the attackers' movements. Maya used her strength to help reinforce their defenses. Emma's visions guided them on when to move and where to hide. When Alexander returned, bloodied but victorious, Elena was ready. "Are you certain about this?" he asked her one last time. Elena looked at Lucas, who was exhausted from filtering so many violent thoughts. She looked at Maya, who was trying so hard to be brave for her younger siblings. She looked at little Emma, who had somehow seen this moment coming and trusted Elena to make the right choice. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," Elena said. The transformation was painful but mercifully brief. When Elena woke up, the world looked different. Colors were more vivid, sounds were clearer, and she could sense things she had never noticed before. She felt stronger and faster, but most importantly, she felt complete. "How do you feel?" Alexander asked, holding her hand. "Like I'm finally who I was meant to be," Elena answered honestly. Over the following weeks, Elena learned to use her new abilities. She discovered she had a rare gift among vampires, the ability to shield others from supernatural attacks and to sense danger before it arrived. This made her incredibly valuable in protecting the children. But more than her new powers, Elena had found her true purpose. She was no longer the barren woman who had been discarded by her human family. She was the fierce protector and loving mother of 3 extraordinary children. She was the partner of a powerful vampire who respected and cherished her. She was exactly who she was meant to be. 3 months after her transformation, Elena received word that David Thompson had been found dead, apparently killed by his own criminal associates when the trafficking ring collapsed. She felt nothing for him except pity for what he had lost when he betrayed her. Elena stood in the garden of their new, more secure home, watching Lucas teach Emma to read while Maya practiced her combat skills with Alexander. This was her family now, not bound by blood but by choice and love and mutual protection. "Any regrets?" Alexander asked, coming to stand beside her. Elena thought about the question seriously. She thought about her human life, her cruel parents, her lying husband, and the ordinary existence she had lost. "None," she said firmly. "I was called Barren by people who couldn't see my worth. They sold me like property and tried to have me killed. But their cruelty led me here, to you and the children. I wouldn't change a single thing." Alexander took her hand. "The children want to know if you'll officially adopt them, and I want to know if you'll marry me." Elena turned to look at the man who had saved her life and given her a true family. "Yes," she said simply. "To both." As the sun set over their garden, Elena Martinez, now Elena Blackwood, vampire queen and mother of 3, realized that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the deepest betrayals. She had been thrown away by those who should have cherished her, only to find a family that valued her beyond measure. The woman who had once been called Barren was now the heart of a supernatural dynasty, and she had never been happier in her life.